Hi, everybody. We're back here with Health Hangouts with Amanda. And what we're doing here, for anybody who's just joining us now, we are posting one video per day for the duration of our confinement in our homes until the government tells us that we can now go back to work and be out in the community. We are going to post these videos to spread strength, hope, and love to those of you out there who aren't asking for help, too afraid to ask, don't want to ask. So if there's anything that you can glean from what you're watching here, that's our hope. So today I have Sean Tyler Foley with us. It's so nice to see you. He and I go back way back, very good friends. And I'm just honored, Sean, that you've given the time here to have this conversation with me and our viewers. And I'm excited about what you might share today. Sean is an entrepreneur, an author, a speaker, a safety advisor, and many other things. He's got many talents. So Sean, welcome and thanks for being here. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, no, well, you touched on it, jack of many trades, master of none, although I'm starting to get there. I'm starting to get my 10,000 hours in a couple of different areas. But yeah, no, I have a very diverse background that has led me to have a very well-rounded portfolio. And you mentioned entrepreneurship. I run 5 companies, and each one is having its ups and downs in this current environment. So that's it's been interesting. Anyways, we'll say that.
Yeah. So how have you been affected? Let's start with the businesses. How have they been affected by what's going on here?
Well, so some of my businesses are work from home and can be done remotely. So the safety consulting, a lot of the program development or just general consultation, I can do in a format like this. I can either on the phone or through a video conference call, can work with my clients and discuss their needs, and then go offline, work on the computer, put together the programs and processes that they need. So that hasn't really been affected either in a positive or a negative. It just is. What has been interesting is the number of calls I've gotten in for pandemic planning, what to do around emergency response plan, what to do on pandemic planning. I've seen a large increase in, can you do this? Now, the nice thing is all of that information is readily available from multiple organizations. So really for me, it's just pointing my clients in the direction of where to find a lot of that information. And if they're like, no, I need a made for me now solution, I've got a couple of templates that we've put together based on their industry. So that's been interesting. But I also do a lot of audits of safety systems, which require in-person interaction, from documentation review to interviews to on-site observations, and all of these things have come to a grounding halt. A lot of certifying partners that I work for have given different direction on what they want to do and how they want to do it. A lot of them have moved to documentation only, but that requires that the companies that we're auditing to have a system in place to share documentation electronically, and not everybody is set up that way. So that has presented some unique and interesting challenges unto itself. The opportunities have grown a little bit because of some changes in how the audits are done. So it's actually opened it up to a few more potential clients that wouldn't have been able to do an audit or afford an audit previously. So that's been interesting, but a lot of the audits that I did have scheduled have been canceled. So I've seen a really weird increase in the one area of the business and then a drastic decrease in another area of the business. And I don't know currently if it's all balanced out. It doesn't feel that way based on the metrics that I'm seeing in my software, but it's been interesting. And then with my speaking, total shutdown. I mean, you can't be in a group of more than 15. That's basically every event that I ever do is going to be higher than that. And even the smaller ones, it's not advised, and you can't be a safety consultant and then holding a 10-person mastermind in a boardroom. That just is bad optics. So the speaking has completely and totally shut down. Revenue is off, and then a lot of the different venues that I had booked, or some of the gigs that I had done previously,
Mm-hmm.
they're not even paying because they don't have money. So, on a 60 or 90-day billing cycle, I've written off a lot of that as just a bad debt,
Mm-hmm.
without any bad will. I understand where a lot of these promoters are, and the struggles that they're going through, and they would have been able to pay me if things had gone normal, but they can't, and subsequently I won't, and that's just how it is. So that's been the biggest struggle is, um, there's the business mind and then there's the business heart, and reconciling the two, and my heart going, look, I get where you're at, and my mind going, no, but you need to get paid. That's been the biggest probably challenge and struggle to the businesses right now.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you have a spouse over there and a little girl, and I'm
Hmm.
wondering how you guys are doing at home.
It's up and down.
Yeah.
Particularly, my daughter's 4, so she is. It's hard for her to understand why we can't go out,
Mm-hmm.
and she's really good. We've always had some really good boundaries and structures with her. So like even right now, she knows daddy's on a call and that she needs to be on her iPad or coloring or painting or doing something quiet just outside the door. But she always works just outside the door so that she can hear me, so that she knows
Oh,
that I'm still here.
yeah.
My spouse is, I'm lucky that she's in an essential industry, so she's still working. They had to scale her back as far as hours go, and make some adjustments for social distancing so that she's not working as much, which
Mm-hmm.
obviously has a financial impact. But wouldn't be the first time we've weathered a downturn in the economy or a full out recession. And we've really tried to streamline our home like a business so that we are able to sustain ourselves financially, because that's usually the biggest stress. So right now we're actually not stressed about money, which is an incredible blessing, because I know so many people who are not in that same position or have that luxury. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not, rich or abundantly wealthy when it comes to money itself, but we do have an abundance of wealth in our life,
Mm-hmm.
in just what we have and how it's structured. And I think the fact that we can recognize that and kind of take solace in the fact that we have a lot within our life, um, that a drop in money doesn't necessarily equate to a drop in a value of our life or our abundance within it.
Beautiful.
And
Yep.
that's been really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll just go on a limb here and offer you to bring your daughter in if you want. That's that, if you did, that's fine, and she could talk to us too. But
So,
if
yeah,
not, if she's in a better situation coloring or whatever she's doing, that's totally fine too. Or maybe even at the end, she could say hi and
yeah, very, very
as
likely
well.
we will get a visit. I usually can sneak
Good.
in 45 minutes of uninterrupted time before my assistant comes in
Yes.
to
Well,
check on me and see how things are.
for a 4-year-old little one, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and that's actually been the really both challenge and blessing, is that
Mm-hmm.
we've always been structured so that I'd be home with her, but
Mm-hmm.
now having to take on the role of teacher has
Mm-hmm.
been surreal, actually, trying to find things that not only interest her but interest me as well, because it's really hard to
Mm-hmm.
teach a subject when you don't care. And what
Mm-hmm.
do you teach a 4-year-old who is just learning, basic math, colors, shapes, words, and reading? Luckily, all those things are fascinating to me, but finding
Very
out
good.
how to do it in a way, I like even finding ways to exercise, because it's been cold here, like really, really
Yeah,
cold. So
you're
not
out
only
in
are we,
Calgary, Alberta.
yeah, so not
Yeah.
only are we self-isolating, but we really can't leave the house very often. We had a couple of days that were nice, and we like went for scavenger hunts and everything, but the
Mm-hmm.
rest of it, it's just been too cold to go outside. So finding ways of exercising inside, doing yoga. My wife has an elliptical machine, and Kenzie's feet are just dainty and so hard to operate that machine, but she's figured it out, and now she's like doing, like,
Oh,
it's really funny to watch because she's almost in full splits by the time the two pedals get as far apart as they can. But she's, she's on her, she has to go down and do her exercises like mommy, which is
yeah.
hilarious. And then me and her do a little bit of yoga together just to
Hmm.
move, to feel like you've done a thing.
Yeah.
And my father was a teacher, so you know, to be the son of a professional educator, it's been really interesting for me to kind of connect with my father because he passed away when I was 6. So it's kind of come full circle, right down to the fact that I've got a COVID beard going right now. And if I could post a picture of what my father looked like, he had a full beard. And as you know, I almost never have facial
Never.
hair.
Yeah.
I'm like
Yeah.
clean shaven most of the time. And so
Hmm.
it's surreal is probably the best word that I could come up with. It's been very interesting to see that dynamic develop.
Wow. Yeah, I met your little girl not long ago actually, and she's just cute as a button. So I do hope that we get to see her
I'm
before
sure
we're
we
done
will.
today.
At
Yeah,
the very least, we
and so we're like well behaved and just yeah, and I love what you when you post on Facebook and you're out and doing things with her when you can, and even I've followed you for a long time, right? So I was around before she was born, and then just as a little brand new baby, and yeah, I'm just really happy for you for what you have developed in your life, and really honored to have witnessed the challenges that you face too,
yeah,
and watching how you navigate those, right? And that's part of the reason I wanted to, on top of you being a very good friend to me over the years, I really wanted to share your experience here, ask you to share your experience here about how you persevere through challenges, because you have such a brilliant attitude about it. And when you get up and you speak in front of hundreds of people, it's just you're charismatic, and you know how to do that so well in a way that people hear what you say. And yeah, so I'm interested in kind of where you're at in terms of advice or thoughts about how people can be working with what they have. And I've always said, like, let's not try and control the things we can't. Let's work on letting those go, and doing what we can, and accepting that that's all we have. So
yeah.
I'm interested, any thoughts about that for our viewers?
Well, I think that's what you said is what do you have? The first thing is take an inventory, and I've noticed just in social media and posts where the focus tends to be is the things that we don't have, like toilet paper. Oddly,
Mm-hmm.
why that
Mm-hmm.
became a thing, I'll never know. Um, but take an inventory of what you do have. So that was one of the exercises that my wife and I did very early in this. We just took stock. In fact, because we have recently moved into a new house in November, uh, we still have a lot of things that are in boxes. So one of the things that we have done in this time, we'd always say, oh, we need to get out of the boxes and all the rest of that. So it was a great chance for us to take an inventory. What do we have? And we've always known that we've had more than what we need. We were actively when we were moving, trying to get rid of stuff and really declutter and pare down and get to some essentials anyways. And it really wasn't successful because with our timeline and a 4-year-old and me working as much as I did the last quarter of 2019, we just there just wasn't time. So literally hired a mover, and they put everything in boxes. So we
Mm-hmm.
had no idea what we have. So we've actually taken the time each day. We open up 1 or 2 boxes, figure out what do we have, and do we still need this? Is this even a thing? What can we donate? It's been a great exercise. And what can we do? Because there are people who are struggling and don't have some of these things. So, I had 7 grooming kits. Like, you
7.
know, yeah, 7. I don't know why or how these things have collected, but like nail trimmers and files
Mm-hmm.
and the scissors and all the little gadgets, and like in nice little pouches. So that went to the donation center. We have one that we like to donate regularly to, and so we've just been paring down what do we need to keep, what do we need to give. asking a lot, putting up a lot of posts to friends, both privately and publicly,
Mm-hmm.
and just asking, what do you need? What is your need right now? What are you lacking? Because I may have that or know somebody who does. And it's a interesting observation in that we are all having to social distance and stay physically apart from each other.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never felt so connected as a community to my friends as I do right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing that's really helped me go through is, although I can't physically see somebody, who can I reach out to and who can I connect to? And one of the things too, you know this because this is a social experiment that I've been doing for a long time, and people can go back in my feed and do. Anytime I think of somebody, like if for whatever reason, if something reminds me of a somebody, I have always had a habit of just pinging them off a really quick message and saying, hey, I'm thinking about you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very rarely where I won't do that now. Um, it's usually by request where people are like, yeah, I get it. You're thinking of me, go away. Right. So I'm like, okay, well, I can scale
Yeah,
that back.
every so often, and it's been more frequent. And I wasn't going to ask about it, but I've gotten these messages, these really kind, thoughtful messages from you, like, hey, thinking of you, hope you're well, and lots of love in them
Yeah.
too, like spreading the love, and it just warms my heart just to receive that one liner from you, like that's really beautiful, and that's happened a few times, like recently, right? So that's I'm honored by that.
Well, and I think it's important that we do that because, it's one thing to think about somebody. And to be honest, this was an experiment that was prompted by Dr. John Demartini, who does a wonderful series of lectures. He has a whole bunch of different programs, one of them being the Breakthrough Experience. And in that, he talks about a yin and yang in life, and that in any time that you feel opposition or a challenge, that you're always supported, that the universe is balanced for a reason in energies and cycles and everything. And I remember him discussing this principle and having one of the participants in the room like really, really against it, like couldn't wrap their mind around it, and just really pushed back on Dr. Demartini. And John was so gracious with how he handled it. But it made me think, because one of the things that he was doing, he was working, doing essentially an intervention and working with this one of the participants, and they were going through this exercise, and he was saying, when you were feeling this challenge, who was there to support you? And the person that he was working with had said, well, they weren't in the room, but I think they were, I know my aunt would have been thinking of me in this scenario. And the other participant who was challenging this said, well, how could you know that? There's no way that you can know that, and you're just making it up so that we can prove a theory, and there's no way to know that. And I remember thinking, from a scientific standpoint, he was right. There is no empirical evidence. If I'm thinking of you, you have no way of knowing that. Even though I am, and you may be in challenge, and I am supporting you from afar, you have no empirical evidence of knowing. So that when if you were to reach out to me and be like, oh, and I go, oh, I was thinking of you. You know when that happens, right? You
Mm-hmm.
pick up the phone and you're going to
Yeah,
phone somebody, but all of a sudden their number shows up and you're like, I didn't hit dial yet, but they were
yeah,
phoning you and you were going to phone them.
absolutely. It's like, oh, great
That's,
minds think alike.
yeah, that is my thought on it. I'm like, how can I start to make this a reality? How can I prove the empirical evidence? So now when anybody comes to my mind, I feel they had to have come to my mind for a reason. Something made me think of them. Ergo, I should let them know that I am thinking of them. So anytime I message somebody, it's because something has triggered me and I've gone, oh, I should send you a message. And recently, this week, I've actually changed my messaging. So instead of telling somebody that they're on my mind, I don't know if you noticed, but the last message that I sent you would have said, you're on my heart today. And I kind of like the tweak of that, because if anybody out there has ever studied heart math, there is a wonderful, wonderful group of scientifically verified and validated studies on the connection between the heart and the mind, and the fact that the heart actually contains neurons. The heart thinks for itself. And when we're in connection, we're usually at a higher vibration, healthier, happier, etc.
Mhm.
And so, extrapolating from that, if somebody universally is we'll call it a universal distress signal, and is emotionally putting out a need for connection. And if I'm picking up on that from a thought, the thought is probably not coming from here so much as it's coming from here, because that's where the electromagnetic resonance actually comes from. That's why you can read your heart on an EKG, right?
Mhm.
So you're not on my mind if I'm thinking of you. You're actually on my heart if I'm thinking of you. There's a reaction that has played here for me to want to reach out to a person. And I think it just sounds better too. It sounds cool. You're on my heart today. And I think it makes that messaging a little bit more fun to receive. And I think lightens somebody else's heart to hear that somebody cares about you. Because here I'm just thinking about you. It's cold, it's clinical. But if I tell you that you're on my heart, I care about you. There is a reason for me to be feeling the way that I'm feeling right now, and I want you to know that that you are impacting me in some way.
Mhm. Well, it's certainly been wonderful to receive those messages from you. And I've always said to you, and I say this to, others in my life, like, I am not very good at keeping in touch, and I have, never really been. And I focus my attention on what's in front of me, and I'm constantly going meeting to meeting and doing things. And um, what I'm taking away so far is a really powerful message for my own life too, that it can be powerful for others and for me in terms of being able to connect. And I don't do that very much. And so this commitment to create these 100 interviews with 100 different people, likely more, is also so beautiful, to be able to connect, because I don't do this. Like, when was the last time, if ever, we think about this really, that you and I had a video call like this? We've never actually done this
No,
before,
you're right.
right? I see you when we're in person. I love the time that we have together. But and we talked about public speaking, and you were aiding me in kind of learning about that, because I was terrified. And so we did some phone calls that way. I think we did one Zoom call once, and now, like, this is just us connecting, and my heart is full as a result of it. And it just teaches me what's important, right?
And
Because I've been prioritizing things that, although they're important, there are things that I need to make room for that I don't, and that's my lesson. For sure.
And I think that comes back to the taking stock, right? Taking inventory of what you have in your life. And so often we look at physical possession or finance are the two big things where if I was to run an inventory right now, right, the first thing people are going to do is, well, they got all these books, and I got all these DVDs, and I got this computer, and I got the desk, and I got the house. But the measure of the man when he passes is never the possessions in his house or what his bank account is. It's really honestly what's said in memorial of that person, that human, when they pass. And that's usually comes down to their social interactions and how they impacted their community, be it their friends and just social commitments. So when I'm doing an inventory, I'm really looking at what are the relationships that I have? How can I strengthen those relationships that need to be strengthened? And from a mental health standpoint, what are the relationships that don't serve me? This has been a really interesting period for me to see who I'm reaching out to, who's reaching out to me. And it's not a ledger. And I can't stress that enough. It's not a ledger. Some people, you being one of them, don't reach out as a habit, but that doesn't lessen my love for you in any way. As you and I both know, I think you're one of the greatest humans I know, a huge advocate of everything that you do, and always will be, because the quality of the connection that I have with you when we meet, or when we get a chance to interact is powerful, and I look forward to them. And so it's a quality over a quantity thing. I don't need somebody to be reaching out every day, but if they are reaching out, does it improve my life or negate? And it's been really, really heartwarming for me, because I would say that 99% of my interactions are positive and welcome, and I look forward to them. And I don't need to do a lot of editing with my social circle. So that's been nice to know that from a social engineering standpoint, that I have created a community that not only I can serve, but serves me well. And that is my wealth right there, that I have people who will reach out to me and ask, how am I doing? Or let's connect. What can I do? And likewise, know that when I'm reaching out to them and saying, how can I be of service? I'm not saying it just one off. And if they ask me to do a thing, I'm going to be like, yeah, but I can't actually do that. I'm legitimately going to come and help you if you need that help, and I have the ability to do it. In fact, I had 2 friends over the last 2 weeks who have moved. I have a truck, and so they've reached out to me. And unfortunately, and I've had to say no, but they've also been very understanding of it. They're like, yeah, no, I get it. But we've found the compromise. I was like, but I won't bring my truck to you, but you can come use my truck as long as you Lysol the complete vehicle when everything's said and done. Then I'm going to Lysol it as well. So I've found ways of still being of service while respecting my boundaries. And I think that's the biggest thing, is knowing what your boundaries are, knowing what your priorities are, and having the conviction to stay within it. I think one of the things that I'm most proud about my wife is her work was not entirely on board with working remotely. And she has the ability to do 90% of her job from home if she needed to. It's very technology based. She's very technically adept. It's just why she's risen as high as she has it within her company. But she stood her ground and said, I don't feel comfortable coming in right now until we have certain protocols in place. Plus, I was away for the first week of when this really actually happened, which was very stressful for us both, because as a safety professional, I knew the writing was on the wall and I could see things coming. And in fact, I'd basically said to my wife prior to me going on my last work trip, I said, this is what's going to happen on this day. This is what's going to happen on this day. This is what's going to happen on this day. And I'm going to be home before this project is done. Wait and see. I knew I probably shouldn't have gone, but the client that I was working for was insistent on it, even though I thought the writing was fairly clear. And I was right. Everything cascaded the way that it wanted to. And so it was nice. It was a good excuse for my wife, because she actually couldn't go into work that first week, because the first thing they shut down was the daycares, which meant Kenzie was home, I was away, and therefore my wife had to be at home. And the blessing in that was that she was able to demonstrate her ability to not only work but actually exceed her workload, because most of the distractions, ergo a 4-year-old, distraction, but the majority of her other distractions within her work environment were able to be eliminated. She was actually more productive at home, which helped her build a more solid case for her to then continue working from home. And now it's kind of a 50-50 blend. She still needs to go into the office, but she can be home. We're spending more time together, and she's really been able to stick to her priorities and her values and her boundaries and say, this is how it is. And I think that comes from having an inner strength and really knowing who you are and what you want.
I love when you talked about like this this idea of wealth,
Mhm.
and how it's not about money, and how, you know, when we die, that we don't get to take that with us. So can you talk a bit more about what you see as wealth when it doesn't have anything to do with money or things?
Yeah. So first of all, your own, the company that Jen works for, my wife, um, the founder of it would say that your handshake is your credit card of life.
Mm.
And I've always loved that saying. And what he means by it is your word is your bond. And
Mm.
if anybody's ever read the four agreements, one of the first agreement is be true to your word. Mean what you say what you mean. And I think wealth really comes from your social standing. You could be, from a financial standpoint, completely destitute. But if you have people who not only you can reach out to, but who will reach out to you and
Mhm.
support you through that, you're the richest person on the planet. The only way to find out how wealthy you are in that aspect is to have the courage, strength, and conviction to ask for help.
Mm.
And I know I've had just pride crushing circumstances in my life, where, you know, financial ruin. I lost an entire company literally overnight in 2012, um, rebuilt, and then with the crash in 2015, my wife and I lost our dream home months after she gave birth to our daughter. Um, and in neither one of those situations did I feel broken, because I had a wealth of support. And the fact that you would use a term wealth of support just goes to show where true wealth and abundance is. That we were, oh, it just overflowed the number of people who reached out to us and who were able to help and provide things, just whatever, emotional support, financial support, um, food, clothing, shelter. We needed all those things.
Mhm.
And um, and it was there, which means I am one of the wealthiest people that I know. Because I did ask, I was able to, but I didn't have to. A lot of times people were just like, hey, could you use this? Or can I do this? Or what do you need?
Mhm. Sure.
Oftentimes, that's probably the worst question to ask somebody, particularly when they're in crisis, is what do you need? Because oftentimes they don't know. So I would rather offer a suggestion of a thing. Hey, can I bring you a insert blank? And you'll find that your offer of support is less rejected that way.
Mhm.
Hey, can I, we've, you know, particularly with Kenzie, she grows like a weed. We go through clothes like it's, I don't even know why we buy outfits anymore. And I'm not going to be the mean parent who buys the two sizes too big, because you'll grow into it. That's just mean.
Mhm.
But I find that, like, particularly like right now, she went through a massive growth spurt. Even in the last couple of months, I think I was telling you that story where she couldn't touch the hot tub when we
Yep.
moved.
Yep.
And then when you were out, you were staying in the exact same hotel that we were staying in,
Yeah.
and she was like, "Oh, we get to go to the hotel, yay!" And then she could like touch the bottom of the tub, and I was like, "That's this much
Yeah.
that you grew in 3 months. Stop it now."
Oh, and
Right? So
before I know it, she's gonna be taller than me, mind you. You know, I'm not that tall, but she's definitely gonna be taller than me.
yeah, well, she's probably going to be taller than me too, actually. If we, again, if statistics hold out, she will be taller than I am. But we go through clothes, so I know a whole bunch of people who are, everybody's having kids always, and so I just
Mhm.
look at the feed and I have different things segmented into different boxes, and You know, I ask, do you need a baby gate? Do you need a crib? Do you need these clothes? Do you need a monitor? Whatever things that we happen to have collected over the course of a couple of years, I ask people if they want those things. Because usually what happens is if they don't need it, they tell you the thing that they need.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, I don't need it. We got so many clothes. We don't need clothes. But man, what I wouldn't do for a baby bullet right now. Sure, I got one of those. Here you go. And I've found that that's been an interesting technique in, instead of asking somebody what they want, offering a thing. They will let them say yes or no, because oftentimes it's either a no, but we could use this, or a yes, and then you fulfilled that need, and they probably wouldn't have reached out and asked otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Where I know, even with me, if somebody reaches out and goes, how is everything? Things are good. Do you need anything? No. My sister-in-law phoned, asked if we needed any groceries. I was like, no. Hung up the phone and realized the bread had molded. We didn't have any ketchup. And I can't remember what the other thing was. I wrote it down. I was like, then I had to phone her back and be like, actually, I need this thing.
So
But
you're saying if someone called you up and said, hey, do you need some ketchup? You would have been like, yeah, actually, we need some ketchup, right?
Exactly.
So it's a different way of delivering the love and the generosity, right? But you didn't,
Exactly.
when she said, do you need groceries? It was like, okay, well, that's a big question. And I don't think so, you know,
Yeah.
but if I said to you, do you need some ketchup? And I bring some ketchup over, you'd have been like, yeah, and bread. And
Yeah.
right. That's
Exactly.
yeah.
It's funny how it prompts the mind. So the same thing with the phone calls, right? If somebody's on your mind, and you know, if you want to, I had another friend that she's very, very socially isolated. They would have been socially isolated regardless of COVID or not. And I just pinged, hey, do you need a coffee? And her response was, no, I've cut out coffee, but I would love a tea.
Mm.
So, you know, I got a tea for me, a tea for her, dropped it outside of her door, and then phoned her up on the video chat, and we had a quick little chit chat. Another friend of mine had a birthday. Same thing. We got her a potted flower and her favorite iced blended drink. Dropped it outside the door and had a nice wave from window to window. But just
and it's
things like that.
these small gestures that can mean the most to somebody, right? And we just don't know how people are feeling. You know, when we say, like you said, how you doing? Oh, I'm good. But if you ask it in a different way, you can actually access a you know, an answer, because people might not know, right? And at the end of the day, a lot of people, they don't even want to tell you. You know, they don't want to say, yes, you know, if you say, do you need anything? They say, well, I don't want to tell them that I need toilet paper
Yeah.
or whatever it is. Like, I don't want to tell them that. But if we say, hey, I'm going to the store and getting toilet paper for us, do you want me to bring you some? You know, and then the answer would be like, yeah, actually, that'd be super great. But it's different because it's not me asking for it. It's you offering and then me accepting that.
Yeah.
Right. And I think about the people who are saying they're okay and they're not.
Yeah.
Right. So this is such a valuable message here, to learn how to communicate in a different way so we can actually access the truth of what's underneath the shield.
Yeah. And like, even with Kenzie, she started really acting up during the night, like part of the bedtime routine, way more than what would be a normal for her. And a lot of that is she's trying to find some way of control. And she didn't really, we've discovered that she didn't really feel that she had an outlet for her emotions. And she of anybody is feeling really socially isolated because she's an only child. And we've had her in preschool since she had turned, basically 2 days after her third birthday. We had her going to preschool so that she could play with other kids. And having moved to a new house in the middle of winter, we haven't met many of the neighbors here, so I don't know where the kids are. And even if we did know, they couldn't play anyway. And now she doesn't have her social isolation. She's kind of stuck with us. So one of the things that we've started, and it was a habit that we had developed when she was going to school that kind of went by the wayside because she's not going to school. But we don't ever ask her how her day is. We go through a series of questions. What was something new that you learned today?
Yeah.
What was something that made you happy? Was there anything that made you sad? What was your favorite thing about today? Did anybody do anything nice for you today? Right? And we just ask her some of these prompting questions where it gets her out of the how was your day? Day was good. Right now it's more of an open-ended, free flow conversation, but guided in that it forces the mind to focus on that thing, right? Do you need any peanut butter? No, we've got peanut butter, but man, I'm really low on ketchup and bread. Versus, do you need anything from the store? No, we just went grocery shopping 2 days ago. But we forgot bread and peanut butter, right? Or whatever that happens to be, right? So we've found over the last couple of days, before we start the bedtime routine, because she's been doing these big emotional, this hurts or I'm sad or whatever thing, I get her the chance to talk about her feelings prior to us going through the routine, so then it gets flushed out. But now we've got a little bit more focused time. It gives us a chance to connect. And it was something, like I said, that we were doing before that we kind of slid by the wayside because she's not going anywhere, so I don't need to ask her about school. But I still need to find out what was her favorite part of the day. Did somebody do something nice for you today? What would you change about today? What did you not like? Right? Because that's helping me figure out what it is that she needs more of. And part of it is the way that I structure even these interviews. These interviews come during her quiet time. Right? She doesn't nap anymore, but she has quiet time, is a little alone time. So most of the scheduling that I do is between noon and 3 o'clock my time, so that it's less disruptive to her. And her school time is from 8:30 till about 11:30, 12. And that's when we go through her whatever course curriculum we need to go through, if we're doing shapes or if we're doing numbers or we're doing colors or whatever it happens to be that day. And we do our experiments and then we have her lunch and go for her walk. And then it's the quiet time. If I have calls, I take the calls. And if I don't, it's just more time for me and her to interact and hang out and maybe watch a movie. So it's been important for me to remember to continue that, because she's still developing and she doesn't have the ability to communicate her feelings very effectively. And it's been frustrating to me and my wife when she doesn't quite understand the concept of the boy who cried wolf, you know, and for her to be like screaming because she's in pain because her finger hurts, and like, do you need to go to the hospital?
Really screaming.
Yeah. And I've asked her, well, if you're in that much pain, we need to go to the hospital. No, I'm not going to the hospital. It's not that. It's this kind of pain. And then it's the fake pain, but she's so wrapped up into it that her emotions just get flooded. And then what's worse is, as you know, if you're that wound up going to bed, by the time you finally fall asleep, what happens? You have bad sleep because you're having nightmares, because your brain is processing that last bit of trauma the very end of the day, and then it translates into nightmares. And then she was getting up and she was screaming. And so we found that by giving her the opportunity to just talk about her day, it distracted her. We got her into the bedtime routine, and then she had focused attention, which is really all she wanted at the end of the day anyway. And it made sense because we stopped paying attention to her about 5:30, because my wife gets home from work and then we have to start prepping dinner and getting these things ready and getting stuff. And she kind of gets pushed to the side while all of those processes happen. So it was the way of refocusing our attention to her, and then she didn't need to lash out. But it was really stressful for about a week until we figured that out. Like, really stressful.
And this is the thing too, that oftentimes we don't know what's really going on for our kids. You know, if we say, how was your day? And they say, good, you know, that might be true. I feel like, oh, it was good. But the conversation doesn't go anywhere. It's just done. And kids often don't have the skills to be able to say, it was good, but this, or it was good and this. Even teenagers often don't have the skills to do that. So I appreciate what you're saying in terms of helping them, because although we're helping them to be able to tell us what it is that they need, it's also helping us as parents to say, this is what's going on with my child. This is how I can understand my child more. And when I can understand the intricacies of how my child's mind works in what they're really saying to me, not the surface stuff, what they're really saying, then I can protect them to a greater degree. And I can know more about what they need and make their lives easier, or perhaps, you know, more challenging in educational ways, you know, like, and it's like a craft. Like being a parent is an art for sure.
Yeah. Well, and again, it helps me keep her better engaged, right? Because I don't like the amount of screen time, particularly with this current situation that she's getting. And knowing that her favorite part of the day was when we got to go outside and find the stick. Okay, great. So let's do more scavenger hunts when the weather's nice. Or see if I can replicate that inside. And knowing that more physical activity gets her a little bit more calmer and has her more likely to stay calm. So let's do some yoga just after or just before lunch, so that you've gotten some exercise in, or that we've done something physical where we've moved our bodies. Just learning those things, what she's taking away and how she's viewing this is been fascinating, particularly because, as you said, but in her age, she doesn't have that great ability to communicate her feelings. But the plus side of that is she is raw emotion and has no filter. So you get a completely honest response from her. When she tells you she likes a thing, she likes a thing. That's a thing to keep doing. When she says she doesn't like a thing, she doesn't like that thing. And it doesn't matter that she liked the thing 2 weeks ago. Right now, broccoli is apparently evil, unless blended. She's asked for blended broccoli.
Okay.
That's what I had to say. I was like, oh, okay. So like in the bullet blend like this? Yes. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't
Right?
have to like it. She
Yeah.
wants it, she can eat it. So weird.
And this is the thing too, is that we can extrapolate this over the masses, because although we're talking about your daughter and other parents might glean benefit from this conversation, I also think like this is how we can address our friends and our family members and our co-workers. And you know, this is not just about kids. We have no idea what's really going on for people. And I think to ask directed pointed questions can be life-changing for somebody. You know, when we do that, and I'll speak for myself here, but I actually, when somebody pays attention and asks direct questions, I feel really heard and loved and understood, and like they're giving me the time of day to be able to share whatever's happening, right? And they're asking, and I think that's a beautiful thing, that if we can pass that along, somebody needs it. Somebody needs us to say to them, you know, can I bring you some ketchup?
Yeah.
Somebody needs that today. And so go ahead.
One other suggestion that I would give to is, I'm sure somebody out there right now is thinking, yeah, this is all great, but how do I know what question to ask? And I think one of the best things you can do to figure that out is to listen. I find, and I'm guilty of it myself, particularly right now with what's going on, there are a lot of people talking, but there aren't a lot of people listening. And I think if we can take a moment to really listen to people and hear their subtext and see what the body language says, even though we're socially distancing, I can see your body language, you can see mine. Or you can even hear it. Like you can hear somebody's mood or tone on a phone, and paying attention to the subtext and what is being said without words. I think will help lead some of those conversations. And if you have a suspicion, act on it. Just ask, hey, do you need insert blank? Because as we've already discussed, they will either say no or yes or no but.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the yeses and the no buts that are really going to keep community together and help grow that abundance of wealth that we see as a social commodity versus our bank accounts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. Well, I just want to thank you again. I know you as Sean, but a lot of people know you as Tyler, so I call you we call you Sean Tyler. And this has just been delightful to have this conversation with you. And I do want, because you're an expert at public speaking, and I'm learning, and here's a question, you know, for me to ask. And I'd love some feedback about how this was for you. So we can close here, unless of course you want to bring your beautiful daughter in to say hi to us, and then I'll stick around for a few minutes and just have a little chat about what this was like for you. But if you have any closing remarks for people, now would be the time.
I think the closing remark would be to listen. It was the last point that I made. I can't stress it enough. We're all going through this together.
Mm.
We need to remember that. And conversations are not waiting to talk, but taking the time to listen to what that other person is saying and really digest what the meaning behind it is. And the better we can do that, the stronger our relationships will be. And that strength in relationships is what's going to not only see us through this, because this too shall pass, but once it's passed, it's those relationships that will help us rebuild back to whatever is next,
Mm-hmm.
that new normal or whatever we want to call it. And that really is going to come down to our ability to listen and understand and be sympathetic and recognize that not everybody thinks the same way, not everybody feels the same way, but we're all in this together. And really through the power of listening, because through listening you can have understanding, and through understanding you can have empathy, and empathy is what is needed most right now. And that would be what I would leave everyone with.
Oh, beautiful. Well, that's great. Do you want to bring Kenzie in to say hi?
Well, we can. I'll see you. Kenzie? Kenzie? She's probably asleep.
On the floor outside the door.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even get a what or a huh. Nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
I can hear a really loud TV going. That's it. So she's asleep.
That's a-okay. Okay, so I'm gonna see if I know how to stop this from recording. Oh, right there. And then we'll chat. Now, before I do this, I'm just wondering if any of our viewers want to talk to you personally. Are you willing to receive any emails or yeah?
Anybody can reach out to me. They can contact me through my website, either one, SeanTylerFoley.com or TotalBuyin.com. Both of those have resources that you can just click the contact me and reach out to me, and I'm happy to offer assistance in any way that I can to anybody who needs it.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and I will close this, and then we'll just have a little private chat.
Sounds good.